Our ESOP pool is about 14.5%.
But 15%, you're in the top 2%.
Inspiration came from the earlier group of entrepreneurs, be it Flipkart or Narayan Murthy for that matter. The number of people that they made wealthy, it was kind of a nobler times. Now I don't think anybody gives that much.
Ashok Hariharan is the co-founder and CEO of IDfy. He turned an unglamorous corner of Indian software into a trust company running 60 million identity checks a month across 3 continents. He refused to lay anyone off, gave away 14% of the company to his team, and never stopped doing product himself.
If somebody is taking a pay cut to take ESOPs, then you cannot tell him that I will give it to you the same price the last round happened, which was 2 months ago. I treat ESOPs as a grant, anchor it to the last round valuation. I think that's a wrong move.
You need to make sure that some element of wealth is generated for them, for the effort that you've put in.
For the longest time, a lot of my first meetings were
Thank you so much, Ashok. Like I said, the idea is to, learn from your journey in managing people while you're building this company. So I'll start as, from the beginning. I did my research a little bit to kind of figure out, your journey, and some of the challenges that you went through and so on. But I would like to focus on, early days of the company and how you went about hiring the first set of people. I know you did mention you entered doing background verification, which was more of a conventional industry.
Yeah.
But you went about, building something tech first for that industry. So I'm assuming the early tech engineers were people who were known to you, or you had some mechanism to bring them on board. Let's talk through that.
Sure.
How did you get them on board into something which is probably not considered a very cool industry to work with? Was that even
I think there was nothing cool in those days. If you look at when I started, I think Flipkart.
Oh, e-commerce. E-commerce was very cool.
Flipkart had only raised $10 million. So it wasn't even, I don't even think there was any negative or positive for any industry at that time, really. My first architect, who still, by the way, still is our chief architect today,
Wow.
Ashok Shah. He was our CTO. In fact, I knew him from the BT days. He was in Tech Mahindra. I had tried to chase him to start my first company, which was in edtech space. At that time, he had said, "Oh, ye business it is not that great. You go find somebody else." So, so this one, I met him again at a Ruby conference, and I said, "Dude, I chased you. You said no to me." He's like, "I'm starting something else now. Would you be interested?" He said, "What are you starting?" I said, "I want to detect fraud in this country, and there's a big trust gap." So I didn't pitch the BGV per se, because BGV is not what I was interested in. I was interested in solving for fraud. So he said, "Well, what are you doing immediately?" I said, "Immediately, though, the only place people even care about fraud is BGV. So we'll start there, but we will migrate towards financial services everywhere that you're onboarding an individual." I think there's an trust enablement problem, which we thought I wanted to be the trust broker, if you may. And so sort of that was so I think he came on for the vision, not for the industry, because we were not ever thinking of ourselves as a BGV industry. So actually the original code was all written in Ruby, but then we very recently migrated to Elixir and Go. But yeah, initial days was Ruby, and we had him. Then we hired a bunch of freshers from, again, known people who were willing to join us, and we were worked out of my house in Bandra, honestly. In fact, after about 4 or 5 months, we decided we should move to Bangalore, because all you VCs said that only Bangalore has good talent. So I believed that, and we moved. Then we realized everybody who has joined us is from Bombay, and I just asked one day, "Guys, you just want to go back to Bombay?" And they're like, "Haan, we'll go back to Bombay." So we came.
Okay. That is nice.
And so, jokes aside, I don't think there's only one city for tech, but that we'll cover in due course. But this VC narrative that only Bangalore exists is wrong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is again one of the things that we borrow from Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah,
People in Texas have a hard time getting VC money because they'll say, "Oh, move to Silicon Valley," because that's where
correct,
the thing is. So we
correct,
just copied that.
correct.
So I remember Vijay Mallya used to use this word very nicely. He said Silicon Valley was a Silicon Plateau. He would
Yeah.
call Bangalore Silicon Plateau. So I think he just we just pretty much copied the model. So out of this 12, early team that you mentioned, largely it was your CTO and then a bunch of freshers.
Then one operations guy, because we did need operations a little bit, who actually was also I was having a drink with a friend. That guy was coming to pick him up. He came up to my house. I said, "Kar kya raha tu?" He said, "I'm working at this company." I said, "Are you looking for a change?" He said, "Not really." I said, "Oh no, I'm starting this. Would you be interested?" He said, "Yeah, let's talk." So next day I had an interview with him at a coffee shop, because obviously you shouldn't have interviews when you're drinking. So then a coffee shop meeting, and he was hired. So that's sort of how my first few people were hired, honestly.
I mean, if you listen to all the Infosys hiring in the early 90s, there was this big joke that, trespassers will be hired. It's like, in your case, looks like bar goers will be hired.
Yes,
Anybody
yes. Actually, for the longest time, lot of my first meetings were at bars.
So you had a favorite bar? Which one was this?
Like the bunch of them actually. At that time, there was this place called Zoe, which I used to go to. There was Toto's in Bandra, which was another one. In Bangalore, it used to be Beer Club.
Bangalore, though, again, Mumbai, I'm not familiar with the city at all.
Beer Club in Bangalore. All my other haunts had all shut down by that time. TGIF in Carlton Tower, and
Yeah,
you Picos. You can't go have an interview there.
correct.
Like
Yeah,
all those are
because it's
gone.
gone. Because it's gone. All of them are gone. Some of the old ones still exist though, but a lot of them are gone. Anyway, and till what time frame was this kind of team, closely knit, small team?
When we started in 2011, 2012, we raised our first round. It was only $100,000, nothing major. So I couldn't hire too many people. So for a fairly long time, I think we were between 12 and 25 people till maybe 2013 or 14. So it
So
was
there's full staff, including engineers and all the operation staff, all of them.
everybody put together. And we, in total, till 2015, we had only raised $200,000. So it wasn't much. We survived with very little money for a very long time, I guess. Nowadays, I think that's just one or two people's salary. In those days, it wasn't like that.
It's not just salary now. You'll have to also include a token budget, right?
Yes,
God
yes, yes.
knows how much you're going to spend on one of
Correct.
these LLM companies. So for the first good 2-3 years while you were setting up the initial stuff, and you said you also started from a business perspective more on the background verification.
Correct.
So was this tech being developed for that, or you were doing something keeping the future in mind?
No, so initially we there were three problems, right? There's onboarding problem, there's a risk problem, which is largely what, and then of late we have started the third platform. So generally we looked at the problem as an individual. In the individual you onboard and then you assess risk, right? So that's sort of how we thought about it. But it was built as from a platform perspective, it was an onboarding stack. Then there was an operations stack, which the operations team would use for workflows and things like that. And the risk stack was internal to the operations thing. Then we had to actually take it out later as we became more automated and more what I would call a lot more AI driven, where we built our own. This is all 2015-16 when we started in the ML journey. At that time, then we extracted out that one stack and made it into APIs and things like that. But yeah, it was just initially, in all honesty, it was a background verification of one form and one workflow. That's sort of how we.
But what was the premise in which VC is funded? Again, it was still your final target of being a trust system, and this as a step to go there.
Yeah, actually, only one VC funded us, right? Like, I mean, nobody. It was only Bloom, and at that time, I don't think anybody thought that there was anything wrong, any great idea here. I would go to VCs, pitch the idea, and one of them actually told me, "Why don't you start an e-commerce company? I'll fund you. Why are you doing this nonsense?" you know, as well-wishing VCs of my friends of mine were saying, like, honestly, you're a semiconductor guy. You used to build high-speed network processor. You had done graphic processors and all this, and you want to do this crap. Is how people reacted. Um, but Bloom saw the future a little bit more. I think, saying that at some point fraud will be a big problem. Which I honestly I used to keep thinking that, like, fraud is a problem in India, but nobody else thought it was a problem in India, including banks, because they were not giving any loans itself. So then what fraud will you have?
And also I think by that time the digitization was not as much as it's today, right? The more the digitization is, the more the avenues for fraud are. So
Correct.
it's
Correct.
in some
So a lot of
and
times people said India, there's no fraud only. Like, I mean, I was like,
mm.
like, aega at some point.
Yeah, I think all they had to do was look at the credit card fraud that happens in the US. Been pretty easy to extrapolate. And Karthik is a great guy. So who represented Bloom? Was it Karthik
Karthik.
or
Karthik.
yeah, great, yeah,
Karthik sits on the
yeah.
board even now.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
I joke around with Karthik. Like I said, both of us grew up together here in this.
So, so what was that point in time where you had to look beyond your initial team, you had to get more experience, and you said you started building some of these AI components yourself. So that I'm assuming that you would have had to, your method of recruiting or where you recruit from type of people, that would have changed, right? So what was that? What was that point where somebody can look at and say there is serious tech to be developed here, so I need really good people?
See, partially I wrote a lot of the code myself also. So, it's just, I think we made do with whatever we had, to be honest, in those days. 2015, when that Uber rape case happened, that's when volume picked up for us, because Uber,
The verifications.
the ride hailing guys needed to verify, and at that point we were doing maybe 200 odd verifications a month. Suddenly we had to do 4,000 a day. So in fact, I think the first big hire, I mean, not even big hire, first like hire beyond these 25 that we had to do was actually product. Hiring, I generally hired from top schools only, even in the early days. So by top schools, I mean like Bits Pilani, VJTI, DJ Sangvi, things like that. So our team was relatively talented for the industry we were in, right? And so that same process sort of continued. I don't think we have fundamentally changed where we are hiring from. It's similar kind of schools, Bits, IIT Bombay, like that. Because the aspiration was always to do something more bigger and something more foundational. So ML, honestly, we taught ourselves. Yeah, there's like, I mean, in 2015, who was doing ML in the country?
Right.
I remember a bunch of startups had raised money, and I remember one lending startup which had raised, and they had gone to a VC, and they said, "Oh, we are doing all our underwriting through ML." And I asked him, "How many loans are you giving?" He said, 10 loans a month. I said, "Usme Excel sheet hai. That's not ML."
Yeah.
Right? That's not even data science. Forget the regression model data, right? You're doing Excel sheet, right? And honestly, I don't think anybody was doing anything foundational until 2016, maybe, where computer vision models and stuff like that where people started using. And honestly, we were probably one of the first to do that. Like I said, Bangalore is not the only place good stuff happens, and we kind of did that from here.
In fact, it's funny you say that because our first investment in the deep AI space came out of IIT Bombay.
Yeah,
So we invested in this company called Arya.
of course.
Went on to build. They're all pre-GPT days, right? So everybody who was all doing some custom stuff around papers that were published at that time, and a little bit of research work that was going on, and so on.
Papers we built. Reading those papers. I remember pitching the idea of face match to someone, and he said, "This will never work." And I said, "Nahi, ho jayega." He's like, "Nahi, it will never work. The quality of the photos are not good. Like all of this." I said, "Nahi, we are doing it." And this was honestly, the person I was talking to was a entrepreneur from IIT Bombay and was running a startup. And I said, "I can solve this problem." He said, क्या बात कर रहे हो, यूएस में सॉल्व नहीं हुआ, इधर कैसे करोगे तुम, and I said, देखते हैं, we'll figure out.
So I'm just trying to identify the, critical hires and how you went about it, right? So in your case, looks like, you had a CTO, you had a, yourself who would also code. And there's an industry which outsiders, as in the general public, does not understand how it works. So I'm assuming, did you guys have a product manager, or you were the product manager, or how did you build the product management skill?
I was the product manager. The first product manager we hired was in 2015, apart from me. And until then, I ran it. In fact, I still do product even now. That's what I get my kicks from. And then I think the product team started to build out maybe more around 2017, 18. That's when the real, like, sort of the volume started to pick up in terms of the hiring, etc. I think 2015 also we must have been only 100 people. Yeah.
Yeah, but 100 people is quite big, right? 100 people in the sense, this is now a situation where the founders may not know everybody every day, may not meet them every day. So you need to kind of, so the reason I was getting to was, key hires, and then there will be probably a time where you will have to formally set some sort of a culture of the company. If it's a small company, everybody will follow the leader and so on, but what was that time period,
Yeah, we really thought about it much later. 100 people, I knew everyone. I knew them by name. I knew their family history. I knew who they're dating, what their parents are doing, everything, right? Because that's the kind of culture we built. And
all of them were in Mumbai. All of them were in one place.
Yes, all of them were in Mumbai.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So we did not like, I don't think HR we must have hired in 2016 or 17 only. Until then, I was doing HR. I interviewed everyone, every single recruit. I'll tell you a very funny story on the hiring thing, not related to what you're asking, but it'll be interesting for you to hear. I used to, I mean, I still do. I still come in shorts and t-shirt only. And people still joke around sometimes as stone t-shirts because I like my old t-shirt. It's very nice. It sits well. It's a fabric. It's used. It feels good. So I remember one of our employees was pregnant, and so she called me and said, "Hey, Ashok, I have some good news. I'm pregnant." And I was like, "Dude, you're pregnant? Okay, great. I'll get a bed for you in the office." So we put a bed out just in one of the rooms where she could go and lie down. And she would do that, and then I would also I'd be like, "Okay, afternoon, if I want to take a 20-minute, 30-minute nap, I'll go lie down over there." We were interviewing somebody, and at that point, my lead for operations was interviewing somebody. The guy comes and interviews, and he goes, "Oh, are you doing? Is there some construction going on in this house, in this office?" We said, No construction." He's like, "Oh, okay. There's a construction worker sleeping on the bed outside." And then he's like, "No, it's not a construction worker. It's our CEO." He's like, "No, but he has torn clothes."
Then it's definitely our CEO.
So
Nice.
so yeah, like, I mean, we were fairly, I think, very early we realized our value, or at least the kind of company we wanted to build, or I wanted to build, was around making sure the culture is like solid. So we invested a lot of time and effort in hiring the right kind of people, to giving that flavor that this is, I don't want to say family because that's not a great term to put for a company, but very collegiate, I would say, because most people, if you ask them what is the best time of their life, they'll say college. Nobody says work, and we wanted to change that, right? And if you remember, the semiconductor world in Bangalore, in fact, was like that in the early 2000s to about 2010. It was that collegiate atmosphere. It was people being able to go and tell their boss that, "Hey, you're wrong, actually. This is not how it works." So that was kind of the attitude that I came in with, and I wanted that to happen here. Because I worked in the semiconductor, I worked in the US for 4 or 5 years, and the best company I ever worked for was like that. Is that you had the best ideas won, and if best ideas have to win, then you have to build a certain culture for that. And that's sort of the endeavor that we had from the beginning, and we've continued with that flavor. And even when we hired HR, etc. The whole idea is how do we keep that culture going? Is that best idea should win? There shouldn't be no hippos in a room, that kind of thing. Not that that'll always happen. Sometimes I do have to.
Correct. But when you got the HR on board in terms of now, obviously, at some point in time, the founding team may just step away from getting involved in every single hire and so on and so forth,
Yeah.
right? So, so in some cases, I've seen setting up the right HR infra itself is the first, big win if you kind of do it right. Whether it could be, like you said, how people are treated, what is their comp structures, into many other things, right? So in terms of, and I'm assuming you continue to grow the company just in Mumbai.
We have a Bangalore office. We have 100 people in Bangalore, by the way.
Wow.
100 people in
Was that
Bangalore, 30 in
that's
Pune.
now.
That's now.
Okay.
In Indiranagar, 100 feet road.
Nice.
Not like I would have wanted it to be in Malleshwaram because I think it's a much nicer area. But
Yeah, Malleshwaram, I can tell you, you'll find the most challenging part will be parking. So you're probably better off, Indranagar, HSR, and these are some of the.
there's no parking in 100 feet road. Yeah, where is the parking? At least Malleshwaram, you can go into the by lanes and park still.
Yeah, 100 feet road. Indranagar used to be like that. You could still use the bylanes. Now even the bylanes are
By lanes
gone.
are fully packed because it's
and-
become a restaurant hub also. No, so
Correct.
everybody leaves there.
Correct. And it used to be only 12th main before. Now every single main,
Yes. Has
is,
become main.
yeah, is gone. Okay, interesting. So we'll talk about, until you got 100 people on board and so on. You still had not raised a lot of money, right?
2015, we raised $3 million. That's about the time when we had hit about that 100 mark. We had hit profitability. No, we might not have been 100. We might have been 60. But we had hit break even kind of. And 2015, we ended up getting to that 150 mark once with the funding had come through. That's when I really started to hire some of the more senior leaders. So one of my colleagues, who's Riju, joined me in 2015. I had been chasing him for a while. The moment I could afford him, I brought him back from the UK. Who's still our chief business officer now.
Cool.
But so he joined in 2015. Incidentally, initially as a consultant for 6 months, where he was running this from on calls and things like that, and then eventually joined us full time once his passport came through, which is the British passport. We were still
Yeah.
one foot on the other side.
So now, what is the time where you seriously had to look at compensation? How was compensation structured for these people?
So early team was a lot of ESOPs here. Like, I mean, we still are pretty. We are pretty generous with our ESOP. Our ESOP pool is about 14.5%. So we are again one of the highest probably in the startup ecosystem. I'm not saying we are the highest. There are other people I think who have been as generous or more generous, but
very close to. I see thousands of people. Okay,
right.
15
be in the
is
top
really
5%.
at the top end. Absolutely, top 2%, I would say.
And that was also by design, because my thought was, if I'm the only person making money, what am I going to do with the money anyway? I can't take it to beyond a point. You're not going to take it beyond the grave, right? So beyond a certain number, it's better to share. And some of that inspiration came from the earlier group of entrepreneurs, be it Flipkart or Narayan Murthy for that matter. The number of people that they made wealthy, I think it was kind of a nobler times. Now I don't think anybody gives that much. I don't know why, but I do think sharing is important.
So let's discuss that a little bit. So kind of of course you mentioned Flipkart and Infosys and so on and so forth, right? And these are good examples to have because the founders did a lot of things right, but also because they were supremely successful. So if you look at it in monetary terms, even if somebody had got a small number of options in these companies, they would have made good amount of wealth.
Correct.
So, but 15%, now kudos to you. I think you're in the top 10, top 2%, not even 5. I would say, but let's kind of break that down, and I know you did mention that it's about wealth sharing. You want to share wealth and so on, but in terms of setting up the actual policy, because ESOPs are still not very well understood for people, right?
Yeah.
People just see this as, kuch mil raha hai side mein,
Yeah.
but I still want to take my cash kind of thing.
Yeah.
So in terms of getting employees to understand what this means? Did you have to do anything specific?
So we had two groups. The group, like for example, lot of people don't care about it, and we didn't give to. Okay, who don't care, we don't give, and we still have the same policy. Not everybody gets, and during the negotiation, we throw two numbers. You choose the number you want, ESOP plus salary or no, just salary, and people choose whatever they want. And after that, we know whether that person cares about it or not. I'm not saying they don't stick around. If they stick around, sometimes they'll talk up and things like that, but that's okay. So we've never been, I would say, like, the way we thought about it is give ESOPs to people who really care about it, because and it's okay if they don't want. It's fine. And we're not gonna and we will compensate through other means. It's okay.
But fundamentally, that brings up another dynamic, right? It's like, somebody who says, I want ESOPs, are these people who would be okay with a lesser salary?
Everybody came with a lower salary.
Salary. Okay.
At that even to today, there's two numbers thrown at you, and you choose the one that you want. It has a salary. I mean, honestly, everybody who has got ESOPs has done far better than the ones who took the salary. But
Absolutely.
but it's up to you. That's the way we sort of believe in it as well. And that's also good, because then people get meaningful amounts for the people who really care. Right? Like, I mean, to give somebody, some 20,000 rupees worth of ESOP is not worth it only, right? I mean, what's the point? So if it's meaningful, then it really should move the needle for them. And so our ESOP is concentrated, and we are not giving it to everyone.
And that's by choice. You've designed it like that,
We have designed it.
And have you seen any patterns in terms of who would index more on options and who would index more on, age-wise, role-wise, anything you've seen?
Yeah, generally older folks tend to want more ESOPs. Older, maybe 3-4 years experience, 5 years experience. The early guys don't want it, don't care about it. I think honestly, when they come to IDfy also, they think this is a stepping stone to the next job. So they're not seeing it. But having said that, I have very low attrition, so people have stuck around. Our average tenure at IDfy is for techies is about 3.5 years.
Wow.
So that's even people who have thought that they're coming in for a stepping stone, they have stuck around, and then we have topped them up with ESOPs as well. So it doesn't mean that because you said no initially, we'll never give it to you. ऐसा भी नहीं है तो.
But have you seen anything change over the years? Because 2020, post-COVID is where a little bit of the proliferation of public market investing changed in India, right? A lot of first-time people would go buy mutual fund shares. So this concept of equity, something that's connected to growth, and you may not see anything today, but if you stay long enough, then this is a multiplier beyond your salary. All of that, and I'm carefully excluding the ones who got into stock market just to trade, because they saw that as a source of income rather than as an investment. So as that education has improved, do you see that translating into better understanding of ESOPs?
See, there is two ways to think about that problem. I do think in numbers, more people ask for it, but there is also this other side where people have not made money as well, like because ESOP pricing is completely whacked out in some places. So when it goes public, they're actually losing money. So there is this counter narrative also that it's not added value to us in the past. Why would it add value now? I do think there is some, I don't think all the startups, I mean, increasingly startups are doing it, but all the startups, like, I treat ESOPs as a grant. A lot of them anchor it to the last round valuation. I think that's a wrong move. Then people don't make money sometimes. I can anchor it to practically, early value, whatever it was.
The face value or some very early value?
Little more than face value, but nothing.
So they are in the money when they come in?
When the money, if they stick around, right? Stick around beyond a year. So, and we are very, very clear, we'll do 25% every year. We are not doing this 10, 20, 30, 40, all of that nonsense. I don't think is fair, to be honest. I know there are lots of startups who do that. We don't. We are trending towards more fairness in the approach, because if somebody is taking a pay cut to take ESOPs, then you cannot tell him that I will give it to you the same price the last round happened, which was 2 months ago. Then then you're not giving him anything, right? Then you're lying to him, which I don't think is fair.
But but on the vesting, you said 25, 25, 25 and so on, right? Is necessarily a backloaded vesting bad? Because sometimes now, if you can create a company, or rather if you can progress a company linearly, then you can say, okay, the equal one makes sense. But let's say semiconductors, right? If you're taking a chip, you're probably spending a year and a half doing design, and by the time you tape out, it's 2 years. So in cases like that, do you see a reason for somebody who would use a different structure and still be fair, considered fair?
I don't think it's fair, but I just feel like majority of the work, because if people are generally going to stick around for 3 years, the most of their work is being done in the first 2 years. And by you not giving it, you're basically saying that, hey, you know what? I know that you will leave, and therefore I'm not giving you enough to.
Absolutely. When one of the largest companies that does this is Amazon.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I see no reason for somebody like Amazon to do it, because it's, you come in and probably in 1 week you start adding value, right? So there is no reason. But early stage companies where nothing is ready, it takes a little longer, because where we have seen, and the comment is again, primarily because you come from the semiconductor background, you kind of know this, the amount of time it takes to tape out the chip, and people who are in early, you do want them to stay long. So this kind of works as a retention tool in some sense. As the company matures,
You can always top up ESOPs. Yeah, give more ESOPs next year. No, why does it have to be unfair upfront? You can say, okay, every year there's an additional ESOP I get, but I just feel like it's and we've always topped up, and every year it's 4 years, right? And it's I don't know. It doesn't sit well with me, because if I were on the other side, I wouldn't like it. So then why would I do that?
No, I love the perspective. There's something, great takeaway for people who are building this so-called deep tech companies. Takes a lot longer to come out, but still follow the same approach and keep topping up so that you kind of take care of the fact, if retention is what you're focused on, you're saying just top it up and that'll kind of solve for it.
It's just a point on just one is fairness, other one is to actually for the employee, he should also feel that it's fair.
Right, absolutely.
It's not just it's optically also good in general. So the guy who's sitting with me on day one, he's thinking I'm being fair. It creates a lot of cachet of loyalty, of love for the company, all of it, right? Why would you bargain that out?
Absolutely. No, that's a very fabulous way to, look at things. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't look at it like that. But like I said, there are public market examples which don't follow something like this, so which is a very good guidance for people who are watching this and say, okay, this is probably, the better way to do this, because you have a lot of other soft additional things that are connected to it, and you don't want to compromise on any of that. No, that's a great point. Coming into, something that I've kind of noticed with companies who have a regulatory overhang on them in some sense, right? And in your case as well, there are a lot of things that are connected to regulations. And I've seen your views, on Aadhaar verification, banks being allowed to do, the partners not being allowed to do little changes and impacting businesses and so on. So, we see this in the financial world all the time, right? Any fintech company, you are doing crypto, you always have some sword hanging on your head, and even somebody like, like a traditional broking company. I mean, I'm using the word traditional because, tech first broking has been so common, no longer begin to call them. So even somebody like Zerodha, Nitin has publicly gone out and said, the changes that SEBI is doing with respect to, option expiry dates, number of option expiries you can have in a week could impact their revenue by 50%. Now, in some sense, you are in the regulated space and so on. Now, where one small move by the regulator can make a big change in the revenue and business, and probably even business model. So, in terms of getting the team along, that these are possible events. This is not about a competitor beating you out or somebody else performing better or you not being able to execute, right? There's a regulator coming and doing something. How do you prepare the team for something like this?
So first things first is we are fairly diversified in our revenue. By diversified, I mean there's no one sector which is very big. Like for example, my BFSI is only 50% of my revenue. 50% comes on e-commerce logistics. So the way to mitigate risk is to diversify, right? Like I mean, so we are fairly diversified in our revenue base. That's the first step. So any one sort of regulatory event where my customer is in trouble, let's say in gaming that happened, it didn't have a big impact to us because it was such a small percentage of my revenue. So it's okay. Some other revenue sort of made up for it. So that's the first thing that we did was just enough diversification that we don't have any one sector which affects us too much. I think I'm gonna pick on you investors right now, right? There's a lot of investors who said like, oh, you're overly diversified. You do not think there's enough market in one sector. I'm like, dude, like that's not how it works, you know. And in 4 or 5 years after now, people are saying, oh, diversification is great. But when I was raising in 2017, I remember, oh, you don't think there is value in this sector, like. No, but that's the same product that I'm using in all sectors. So how does it matter? So I mean, I do think in highly sort of what is the right word? Dynamic environments, diversifications is a good thing. And I don't think the world has only gotten more and more dynamic over the last 2 years after the transformer model, and attention is all you need, and it's become more so, right? So then we have to play the game that way, and fortunately we did. I could have decided to do the other way and say, okay, I'm going to go deeper into one, which we did as well eventually, but that might have affected me a little more, I feel, if I had not done that. Second, I think for us, regulatory events have been a tailwind rather than a headwind. Because if I look at DPDP, for example, that's a new product that we launched, and we are doing fairly well in that. So it's a tailwind there. There's been more fraud. There has been more fraud in the last 5 years than any time before. So the regulator has become more concerned about fraud and risk. Therefore, our platform got sold a lot more. Digitization happened, therefore our platform grew. So it's like historically been a tailwind, other than industries dying altogether, which has also happened. I'm not like, gaming being one example, unsecured lending being another example where RBI has come down hard on that. And I look at it saying, and crypto being another example where, and that's okay. Like, I mean, if you diversify yourself well enough, then you're okay. And that's sort of what we have done.
So the good part is, regulation always is both a headwind and a tailwind, right? You don't know what hits you when. So in your case, it's largely been working as a tailwind. So my comment was more to do with, let's say Aadhaar is your source of validation, and you build a product to do Aadhaar validation, and suddenly somebody says,
we didn't do it like that.
Exactly.
So for us, we build platforms. So we didn't build. So like my competition, for example, even today, most of them make money through APIs. My API revenue is fairly low. It's like 15%. I sell platforms, so I don't care if it's Aadhaar tomorrow, it's DigiLocker the day after tomorrow, it is CKYC. It doesn't matter to me because that'll just be enabled on the platform. And as long as you're utilizing my platform, and I'm thinking of myself as a operating system for risk, right? If I'm an operating system for risk, what those individual data points do is kind of irrelevant. You can plug one data point and plug another data point. How does it matter? If I were playing a pure play API game, I think it would have been a disaster for me, which a lot of my competition did and died.
So in terms of team, people who are engineers, largely, if you see their growth in companies, small portion of them go into managing business, as in get into sales. Some of them get into product and so on. And in your case, since you're dealing with so many newer industries and so on, are there any good stories of people from engineering team now I'm interested in the domain, I want to work a little bit there, a little bit here?
Very interestingly, there's been not a single, there's been only one person who has moved from engineering to product or from engineering to sales. This is again, maybe it's part of the culture we built as well. Where we are fairly engineering focused as a company, engineering and product focused. If we are product first, I remember my US stint at Laurel Networks in Pittsburgh. I remember no engineer would ever go and go from engineering to product and product to sales, right? Like that just didn't happen because you said my view is I want to become an architect, that kind of trajectory, because as long as you're treating the engineers really, really well, they want to stay in that place. So we have only had one move from, and that also has been from engineering to product, never to sales.
Yeah, obviously. Well, I see more of people from tech, and especially now that programming is no longer becoming primary job of a tech guy. You're kind of looking at what do I graduate to, right? And most guys who wants to grow beyond tech and wants to go out of engineering into learning a little bit of the business. And I've seen in general it's harder when you are in industries where you don't have a peer, you don't have comparables, where everything has to be learned. So now you've spent 3 years building tech. Now you understand what the customer thinks. You understand a little bit of where this stuff is going. And with somebody like you being there, I would assume that if people want to get into the business side of things,
we don't mind it.
But I'm surprised there's only one. Is there any? I mean, did people love the tech so much? Because there's one point.
They love the tech so much.
Exactly. So I wanted to pick your brains on one thing where you said at some point in time, because of scale and so on, you guys ended up rewriting a bunch of stuff, right? Right now, typically a non-engineering led company will never do it. Rather, what I meant is, if most of the founders are not from an engineering background, they'll say, "Hey, usko touch mat karna. You do it from a nice side project." But and I've also heard you say that almost everybody responded very, very positively, and they just wanted to kind of get this out and so on. So that's one, and this is something that you do not find in a lot of companies. Now, are there any other examples similar to this of pushing this tech engineering first culture, and the founder is standing behind and saying, "Let's go do it"?
I'll tell you 3-4 evolutions that we have done, right? One is we've started with Ruby. As the scale increased, we realized Ruby doesn't scale that well compared to this thing. So we said, okay, if I want to do the best messaging sort of platform or coding thing is old telecom. Telecom does this at scale. The one that the Elixir is kind of a telecom oriented programming tool, and we realized that's where we can deal with scale rather than front end, because we are not a very deep front end system. We are a lot of our core is in the messaging behind it, the back end works, right? So that's sort of where we focused a lot of our energy after 2015. We built our own ML models. In fact, we have an SLM which we built in 2019, which at that time we were calling transformer model. Now there's a new name for these things. So we have a 2 million parameter, like about 2 million parameter models for bunch of things that we do, which are specialized models which perform far better than GPT or Llama 2 or etc. Largely because it doesn't hallucinate. It's purpose built. It's also built with explainability built in. So a lot of our tech has been around architecting, right? Then around 2019 onwards, we decided that we want to do a different type of development framework called instrumentation based design, where we said everything that we have has to have instrumentation built in. That is, data is flowing into our data lake for every interaction. So every interaction then is being dumped into this data lake, which then we can mine and figure out So it, like the whole architecture framework, thinking through the architecture was always, I think, I'm going to say something which is probably not very liked in the world. I think one of the worst thing that happened to software design is actually Agile, which allowed you to not think at all. Uh, you build while fly is the worst advice that anybody has given to software engineers, because for the longest time nobody thought through architecture. If you remember the chip design world, if you didn't check properly at the time of masking, you're done. I mean, you've wasted $10 million, $20 million, whatever. There was no cost to failure, right? So you didn't architect web properly, and so we always felt that is not the right way to do things. So we were a little more old school in our approach. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Agile. Let's put it that way.
No. I can now understand why people didn't want to move out of engineering into other roles. With somebody like you having this kind of an approach, you would definitely not want to leave. And I have this fight with semiconductor versus software thing all the time. I keep telling them semiconductor, even QA engineers in chip design are light years ahead of software QA. The software QA guys also know, "Arey yaar, we will patch it."
लाइव पे
Just
होने दो, क्या फर्क पड़ता है?
correct.
Why
I
do I
mean,
need to think ahead of time?
and that's also pretty much come from the modern internet world with growth VCs and growth minded founders.
Yeah, and be in beta for 100 years. Come on. Like, what does beta mean?
Yeah, you are in perpetual beta. You're in perpetual beta. I think even something like Gmail carried that beta logo for about a year and a half, if I recollect.
But they did architect really well. So they didn't follow, at least from what I know, they didn't follow the agile principle.
But here's the problem, right? If Gmail is under beta for 1.5 years, why will you blame another software VP for saying I'm in perpetual beta? It's some bad habits that come in. You know, Great. I want to move on to, you also not only grew organically in terms of people, you also acquired a company, right? So which, meant, different people who probably came from a slightly different background, different culture. We don't know how the company was set up and so on. So just walk me through the acquisition in terms of how did you integrate the company? Did you do any pre-work saying, यहाँ पे culture match हो सकता है, only then we will do the acquisition? What went on in your head?
So I think we were working with these guys for 3-4 years, where they were so these are people that we were using earlier for a bunch of our products, which, like I said, we were a platform play, right? So they were providing one set of data which my platform was using, which was code data, court and FIRs, etc. So we were using them. So we knew their culture, we knew their team very well. The two founders were great guys, engineering focused, deep thinkers. They built a very very nice culture, which is other problem I have. In the tech world, there are two cultures which I've seen. Like there are not too many people in the middle. There's one which is you work only 2 hours and then you go and sit at Bob's bar in Canada. And the other guy who's saying you need to work 120 hours. Both these in my opinion are bad outcomes because creativity etc comes at a point where beyond a certain amount of time, if you're spending at work, then you're not creative at all. In fact, actually, to be honest, again, the semiconductor world understood that really well. So they would force us to leave at 7 o'clock and come early morning. My first boss said, you come at 8 every day, and you leave by 5. You leave. It's okay, but 8 you be in the office, because the early morning is the most conducive for the brain to. And by the way, it's been proven. I don't know why people are still okay with coming at 11, because it's been proven that 8 o'clock is the best time for the mind, right? And so we follow that philosophy, saying that 40 to 60 hours is good enough. And in that context, I think this company was in the similar kind of way that they were functioning. They were treated their people well. A product and engineering was given importance. Do I think then we had to do a lot of work afterwards? Obviously, we thought they'll be exactly the same, but they weren't, obviously. And in that context, a lot of people felt we were not the right place for them. A lot of them did stay back as well, because we were the right place for some people. So those things happen, and I'm not too bothered with it, because and what we on day one said, everybody then becomes an IDfy employee and things like that, rather than staying that employee of that. But actually, to be honest, we didn't do that initially. We did that. We ran that company as a separate company for a year and a half. Then we started. So we moved in that direction over a period of time, because we also didn't want them to feel we are coming in and helicoptering in and solving some one of my friends used to say this, when there was I think one of the large companies acquired a company and then sent a mail to everyone in that employee, this thing that you're an acquiree, and that was their celebration. You have been acquired, and you don't want to, you want to seem that you're part of the system, not a separate this thing. So we waited a little bit. I would have done it a little faster now that I know what I know, but maybe I should have done it maybe 6 months in rather than 1.5 years in. But yeah.
So, and in terms of sizes, was there like a big gap? Like you were very big and they were small in terms of people?
Yeah, they were the Bangalore team. They were about 100. We were about 400. So
Okay, still 25%. It's not a small number to integrate.
yeah, revenue wise they were much smaller, but size wise they were.
And did this company also have ESOPs and all back then of
Yeah.
theirs, or
So
once they?
we did a cash buyout. So we had a 2-year period where everybody earns out. So people made money.
Okay,
It was good outcome for people.
fantastic.
And the people that stayed back after that, we topped their ESOPs up.
With IDfy ESOPs.
With
No.
IDfy.
Okay. And what has been the post-integration? Each one of them have independently grown, or now you are one single integrated place?
We are one single integrated place.
Integrated place. Okay.
Yeah. They come under the risk platform. So we have 3 platforms, like I said: onboarding stack, risk stack, and the privacy and data governance stack. They got plugged into the risk stack, which then builds. In fact, the people there are also working on other projects now, not just their projects. So people get movement within tech enough that they feel that there's value in learning every year.
Right. And the founders of this company, do they continue with you guys right now? Okay, they left after a while. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be very honest. Initially, when we bought them, we told them, hey, do you want to? We would want you to stick around. But I realized after a year and a half, and they also didn't want to in the first place. They had told me that we'll stay only for 2 years. But after a while, I realized that it's hard to integrate teams when the existing founders are also there, especially because it's their baby too. And I don't want to take it away from them, because they have a different way of running it. And they would see this changes and sit there and go, oh, why are you doing to this? Why, it doesn't work in general unless you're trying to run that company as a separate company, or the founder is maybe interested in something else to do within the IDfy framework. That was not the case with us, and they wanted to sort of step out, and which they had told me upfront as well. So there was no surprise there.
I think the 2 years is a very good number, because most entrepreneurs, if they are more focused on running things independently and so on, and here it's a very slightly different approach. And I've kind of seen it's not about just the way of functioning. It is just that a mindset that, okay, it's my baby, but it's also no longer my baby.
Exactly. And it's tough. If I would put myself in their shoes, I think I'd be devastated with the changes that anybody would try to make in my org, especially when you run it passionately. There are some entrepreneurs who are running it for business, and that's okay. Some entrepreneurs are running it to create an environment, blah, blah, blah. These are that kind, and they will have a bigger pain. And they're like me. I would have a bigger pain in integrating with some other culture, not because the culture is bad, just that it's different than mine.
But typically, is that what you would, from given this experience and what you've seen with others, is that like a good method that you would recommend if you were to acquire a smaller company? Figure out a way if the founders can stay for 2 years, help transition. If they want to continue, great. If they want to go out, great. Any like.
I don't think there's any other way to think about it. I mean, if they want to stick around, you cross that bridge after the 2 years. But initially, I don't think there's that much value of thinking about it as a long-term sort of sticking around as on day one. Think of it as a time bound activity, and then you assess every 6 months or 12 months if there's more to be done. And honestly, Dipender has done a great job with Dinsa, right? And I don't want to take away from what he has done, and I think brilliant job. In fact, not too many work out like that.
Correct. No, and also in this case, especially with founders, there is also the concept of wealth that's going to get generated, right? If it's a listed company buying a private company, it's different. You have liquidity that's opened up and so on and so forth. But in this case, you're also a private company, you're also VC funded, and you're acquiring a small company, but you need to make sure that some element of wealth is generated for them. So in that thing, 2 years you think is a good enough
Time.
thing for both parties to kind of transition, at the same time get something out for the effort that you've put in.
I think if you're buying, I think anything less than 2 is too little. More than 2 is beneficial, obviously, but you don't have to cross that bridge on day one, is what my take is.
Okay, cool. So let's come to the final part of the discussion I want to have, which is around ESOP liquidity. You guys recently provided some liquidity for all your employees and some of the other early investors and so on. So kind of walk me through the process. What was the thought process behind it? Did you design in such a way that you're going to go raise enough money to be able to provide liquidity as well, or did that happen as a byproduct of
No, we thought about it upfront. So we were anyway more interested in secondaries because we were profitable. We've been EBITDA positive for a while. We generate cash, so we don't need cash per se. So it was not to run the show. We raised a little bit largely for acquisitions and for liquidity for our ESOPs. We did it two ways. So what we did was twofold. One is we give secondaries to some of the old employees who had left or had exercised, etc. And that one we did upfront, and we gave exits to our early investors who had spent the time in the cap table. Then we raised primary as well. From the primary, we are doing a ESOP buyback, which doesn't. These are people who have vested ESOPs but have not exercised it. So this is a company buying the shares and bringing it back into the ESOP pool. This we are about, we'll do in the next 5 days.
Cool. Congratulations. I think that's a great move.
Right. That way that whatever X% of ESOPs comes back to the pool, now it can be reallocated. This is literally, I think maybe we did one or two small ones earlier, but this is the first time we're doing it.
Okay. And people have been around. I'm assuming there would be a set of people who are around for more than 6, 7, 8 years in the company, right?
Yeah. There are close to about 7 people. There are 4 people from my original 12. We call them the apostles of IDfy. So they've been around for 15 years. There are easily maybe 30, 40 people who must have been more than, or maybe even more than 10 years.
So, but you also mentioned that people, there were people who had exercised ESOPs, right? But we know, moment you exercise, you have a tax bill and so on and so forth. So how did that kind of work? They paid the tax?
They paid the tax. So we have been recommending our employees to exercise often, because we always said that when you exercise, if you exercise later, the tax implication is a lot more. You won't make as much.
Correct.
In the interest of being fair and open and honest, we've always told people, please exercise. In spite of that, people don't do it sometimes, but that's okay.
No, but they have a tax bill, right? How do you help them with the tax bill? Is there something that they figure it out on their own?
They figure it out on their own.
Okay. Because for a lot of people, that is prohibitive.
So generally what people did at IDfy was their bonus amount that they would, year-end bonus, they would use that to fund the tax bill. So to that effect, people would exercise.
So did you ever consider a mechanism like sell to cover, typically what's in the US, where you sell about enough of options to make sure that it pays for the tax? Because sometimes the tax bill can be significantly high.
Yeah, we didn't. We have never done that. I mean, honestly, we have not. This is the first time we're even doing a ESOP buyback. Um, uh, uh, we asked people, like, see, even banks give loans these days for this stuff.
But it is very positive. I mean, because generally we hear, at least in our experience with the people that we work with and so on, right? One of the biggest problems is there is a tax bill, and number one, who's going to pay the tax bill, right? And the US, this industry is a lot more mature. You have no recourse financing, where somebody gives you and you have a profit share, some model you figure out with the financer, but ultimately you don't lose. And India has this little provision for DPITT companies, which I think is absolutely useless. So you have a tax deferral, but once you leave the company, that deferral goes away and you're hit with the tax bill. No one will be confident to excise. But I'm glad, you said people had the confidence to excise, pay the tax, and wait for a liquidity.
Yeah, in fact, when we did the ESOP buyback also, we had a X number to hit. Okay, we only hit like one third of it, so people are not selling.
That's another. I was going to go to that question. So so you gave an option. How many people took it? How many people didn't take?
Yeah, it was very odd.
No. I think it's not really odd when you come back to it. I think the confidence in the company, because the way we see it is, especially people who are in the company for 8 to 10 years, they're also going through life events in that process.
So actually, to be honest, when okay, the first time I did it, I actually bought the shares, so I covered it for the person,
Okay.
right? Like technically, then his tax got covered because I
Yeah, that's nice. That's a
uh,
great gesture. Yeah.
because he needed it badly, and I was like, oh, nobody else is out there, so I will buy at whatever the last round valuation was at that time. It was only like 6 months before that thing, so it was approximately correct only. um, yeah, that I bought. Then we had a management buying out people maybe 3 years ago, where as a management team we said, okay, if anybody wants to sell, we'll buy. So we were 10 of us, 20, 15 of us who went and bought from each other to make this happen.
That's so cool. So, from then to now, from the last liquidity program that you explained to now,
That was not very structured, like it was just random.
and one question, since you guys went through the COVID period, and I kind of learned that the COVID ultimately turned out to be positive, net positive,
Extreme positive for us.
right? So now, but everyone has gone through pains because none of us
Yeah,
could figure out,
yeah,
like all of us planned for 2 months at most, one quarter at most kind of thing, right? And it turned out to be 1.5 years or whatever.
yeah,
Now, everybody cut expenses. People
yeah,
pretty much across companies have taken salary
yeah,
cuts and so on.
yeah,
So now during that time, I'm sure you guys went through some of those
yeah.
challenges as well. But did ESOP as an instrument help you during that time, saying, okay, we'll give you more ESOPs, and or there are people said, okay, we'll just somehow write this through and see.
So two things. One is we decided that we'll not fire a single person, including security guards who are not on my payroll. We'll still pay them because we said like that's not fair. I mean, it's maybe it's a little bit of my dad's little bit of what my dad told me is like DNA bad karma comes and haunts you
Bites you.
in the
Yeah.
end. And I don't want to be responsible for anybody's sort of this thing. So we didn't even lay off anyone, even for performance in that 1.5 years. We just purposely didn't do it. But what we did was we asked the management team, like we said, like I went to the team and said, hey, we have two options. We don't have money, and VCs were not willing to give anything. So we need to weather the storm for like maybe 3 months is what we thought initially.
Yeah. That's what all of us thought. Just one quarter at best.
And 3 months means X amount. And what should we do? So pretty much unanimously people, and we only asked a certain group of people who could afford, and we said I do not want to fire anybody below this number. So unanimously people said cut salaries at a sort of a waterfall method where the senior leadership takes the most hit with as a percentage with different layers in terms of salary layers, and anybody below like I think it was number was 6 lakhs didn't get any hit. So that's sort of how we played it, and we always told them that we'll pay it back when COVID
Situation improves. Yeah.
situation improves. Fortunately for us, first 2 months were horrible. After that, it started to like rocket ship. So we paid back literally on the 4th month.
Wow. That's a fabulous story.
Right. So we didn't use ESOP as a tool. I think we might have even paid back with interest, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, yeah.
No, I've kind of got a whiff of how you think, and I won't be surprised if you've done it. From that perspective, Ashok, I'm done. It's been fabulous. I think a whole bunch of learnings. Engineering-driven leader, engineering-led organization, fairness in how you treat people, both from general as well as compensation perspective, providing liquidity, integrating another company through acquisition. You've pretty much lived the whole gamut of what a good startup journey needs to look like. And again, I'm assuming the next logical step would be to list at some point in time.
That's right. In a few years, couple of years, maybe 2 to 3.
Thank you so much for taking time.
Thank you so much.